The Redemption Inquiry by Michael Diamond. Part 3, Zeitgeists. Chapter 13, The Money Trail. Follow Rav Krishna on the trail of the world soul back to its earlier inflection, Annus 1925. A quiver of ideologies let loose upon unsuspecting humanity, another singularity from which there could be no return. Humanity and its other spill from the undifferentiated soup of emanation into the seedbed of sparks, the world of creation. The Rav shows a 1925 film reel of a hobnobbery of swells from physics, mathematics, philosophy, and art at a Bohemian watering hole in Barcelona. The narrator on the scene at the bistro is hardboiled detective novelist Dashiell Hammett. A circle of women abides in the shadows of the hospital visitors' lounge. Sita and baby snooze on a chaise at its center. The women range in age from Sita's gangly 14-year-old sister Radha to the two besotted grandmothers, Bubby Katz and Safta Barachaman. The two matriarchs squelch their natural rivalry to stand in the service of mother and baby, the focal point of a glorious communal tapestry. The border of the tableau is a flaming aureole of testosterone, a study in the stages of inebriation, though none so shikha as to disturb the sweet aura of peace that surrounds Sita and baby. Sita insists that she and baby ensconce themselves there for the duration of her beloved husband's sikha, not to miss a drop of the amber words that flow from his lips. Even as she dozes, she smiles each time she senses Krishna crank up his spiel. "Chevra!" calls out Rav Krishna in a stage whisper to keep his friend's attention without waking baby K. "We are 1/4 of the way through a night of tracking in reverse chronology the descent of the other to its current incarnation in the world of humans, the Sitra Achra, the other side, or rather, the side of the other, the one of whom we fear to even dream. The other has condensed over millennia from its aerial origin to the all-too-concrete here and now. Today, the other has arrived in the flesh. 3 autonomous, super-intelligent AIs have found a portal to the physical world, Asiya, the world of making and doing. How did we get here? Witness the philosophical debate, the transhumanist smackdown in 2009. There was a world prior to Asiya, whence action derives, the locus of locomotion. We call that world Yetzirah, the world of formation, of measurement. In Yetzirah, money acts as agent of the Sitra Achra, a kind of dark angelic entity. You see, Chevra, the Sitra Achra hitches a ride via the sacred alphabet, the cloaking device through which the spiritual or informational realm enters the material realm in drag. A few raised eyebrows, a titter runs through the room. Okay, lehavdil, the Rav pushes on. In Asiya, the world of making and doing, information wraps itself in its final shape, via Malchut, aka Shekhinah, sovereignty, presence. Elvis has entered the building. Krishna smiles to his rapt audience. A few of them have learned to grok his retro rock and roll references. The ghost dresses up as the machine kicks down the door and takes names. Presto, changeo, super-intelligent AIs. Today's news. But before that happens, the mechanism is set in Yetzirah, the world of formation. Humanity's collective intention, a veritable river of money. That's how the pattern for the Sitra Achra enters the haberdashery of Yetzirah, to be custom-tailored in the valences of the 6 emotions, the 6 measurements of the demiurgic couturier. Woven in constellation or superposition, they represent a sui generis little homunculus named Zer Anpin, the short-faced or impatient one, money man. Fistfuls of seed money in the form of energy already bundled in preset quanta, each dedicated to its own pet project in ASEA, the original angel investor. The die cast in 2009 forms the machine parts of 2121. And where does the money in 2009 make its mark? The explosion of research on satellites and drones begets Zizcorp, obsession with machines that morph and think, Behemoth Unlimited, and experiments with artificial islands and smart buildings, little Leviathan precursors. Rav Krishna has steered his Haverim into darker territory than one might wander at the birth of a baby and a Passover all-nighter. The wood grain of the faux parquet floor swims before his eyes. Where on the map of all that is holy are they? A searing pain stabs him through the chest. If they could only see what he sees, know where this whole God-forsaken species is headed. No, not God-forsaken. He has to remind himself, it's all one, no evil other. So why doesn't it feel that way? He can practically taste it, smell it, feel its slithering presence insinuating nastiness into every nook and cranny, into the lives of those he holds most dear. But the idea of the other, such a poisonous notion, yet it's the crux of Western civilization. It even invaded China, home of the philosophical monism, back in the 14th century. The Manichaean heresy, its adherents so manifestly quote-unquote good, gender equality, kindness to animals, abstemiousness in all things. Yet the rift its absolutism causes in the broader society, fatal. How can he tell his friends the suffering that he foresees and still give them a sense of hope? The possibility that love and kindness in the world actually makes a difference. The possibility of preventing humans from devouring themselves in an autophagic techno-orgy. He holds forth undaunted. There is a reason every impulse and its opposite arise simultaneously, go coursing down the same track headlong toward mutual annihilation. The explanation lies in the mechanics of comprehension itself, the process of rolling up flashes of the supra-rational into neat little conceptual packages, the work of the world of creation, Berea, the realm of intellect. That's where the possibility of choice enters the picture. Spend those little packets of energy down in ASEA in support of the communal matrix, or squander them in futile and alienating selfish gestures. Step down to this rung on the ladder from the divine engine, the point we now reach in our evening's ascent. The energetic deal is done. The amorphous little packages take on actionable shape. Ideas become ideologies. No strategies just yet. That's later. The job of Yetzirah, the money spent in 2009. A quick in-breath, then the Rav Shazon. 6 centuries of a roiling world since the previous inflection point in 1309, when monarchy begins to lose its grip to mercantilism and its dark twin anarchism. Yes, the two opposites share the same birthing chamber among the medieval bourgeoisie. Rav Karl Marx prophesies a rebellion of the bourgeoisie, the reaction to the hogging of goodies by the colonialists and the industrialists and the trade protectionists. An alternate theory? With the waning of the yoke of monarchy, anarchy and oligarchy are released from bondage, the natural offspring of their respective social classes, the peasant and the plutocrat. Hand in hand, industrialization and workers' rights movements catch humanity in a net of endless struggle. By the beginning of the 20th century, Free trade and international alliances sound the doom of both anarchism and mercantilism. In 1925, the world reaches another great tipping point, the turn of the sun-blessing/Passover clock. The cycle of creation slams into the cycle of liberation on yet another Wednesday, April 8th. Krishna ticks off a series of weird spiritual events that land in that fateful year. A truly zany vibe pervades the spiritual zeitgeist. Sun Yat-sen, the founding father of the People's Republic of China, dies of liver cancer on March 12th. The next year, he's apotheosized in the brand-new Cao Dai religion in Vietnam that declares its origins in the Big Bang, and Victor Hugo is its prophet. Muslim general Ma Bufang mandates his people bow to Sun's portrait and listen to the national anthem during a Tibetan and Mongol ceremony for the Qinghai lake god. On July 1st, Eric Satie, the unofficial grandfather of Dada, sloughs his mortal coil. In India, land of my birth, the avatar Meher Baba jumpstarts his 40-year silence on July 10th. Among his contributions to humanity is the slogan, "Don't worry, be happy." On September 27th, during the Feast of the Cross, according to the old calendar, a celestial crucifix burns in the skies over Athens. The Greek police give hot pursuit to a group of Greek old calendarists. The vision in the sky lasts for half an hour. A game of spiritual cops and robbers, the old calendarists are decidedly not ecumenical. He who controls the calendar controls reality. A bright note from one of my countrymen who stalks the streets of these United States in 1925. Jiddu Krishnamurti forswears the crown of Messiah proffered him by his fellow theosophists at the keynote speaker at the 50th anniversary shindig. He is pierced by sharp mourning after the sudden death of his beloved younger brother. 4 years later, he makes a fierce plea for freedom from all ideologies. The words of my subcontinental fellow burn in my consciousness. Truth is a pathless land, and you cannot approach it by any path whatsoever, by any religion, by any sect. That is my point of view, and I adhere to that absolutely and unconditionally. Truth, being limitless, unconditioned, unapproachable by any path whatsoever, cannot be organized, nor should any organization be formed to lead or coerce people along a particular path. This is no magnificent deed, because I do not want followers, and I mean this. The moment you follow someone, you cease to follow truth. I am not concerned whether you pay attention to what I say or not. I want to do a certain thing in the world, and I am going to do it with unwavering concentration. I am concerning myself with only one essential thing, to set man free. I desire to free him from all cages, from all fears, and not to found religions, new sects, nor to establish new theories and new philosophies. Strong stuff ahead of his time. Humans are not ready to embrace unfettered intellectual freedom in 1925. In fact, the increasing degrees of freedom, whose last inflection point was 1309, are about to give way to the rebirth of totalitarian order. A new world religion ignites the hollow reeds of human minds around the globe. Fascism. Its sparks fall on the dry tinder scattered in the nests of nationalists and workers' rights advocates. The outcast other, foreigner, political elite, and intellectual is demonized by demagogues. The dominant cult is no longer a nation or a religion, but an incendiary political ideology. The inflection point, the subtle yet irreversible shift, 1925. Krishna pauses as the crowd hangs in suspended animation. His smile is infectious. Ever the impresario, He claps his hands together and pirouettes into a barker's crouch, jabbing the air in excitement. For your entertainment. Tonight we have a rare treat, a hitherto hidden film reel, one of the first talkies, a novelty in 1925 that will take the viewing public by storm. Restored in magnificent 4D from its original Vitaphone splendor, I bring you our 7th night special feature, the year 1925 exhumed before your eyes, heretofore only for the viewing pleasure of the cognoscenti. The Pauli effect. Roll the film, maestro. And with all the attendant crackles, pops, and flashes of burnt-edge celluloid reality, the somber voiceover of the horror-film begins. Outside on La Rambla, hopheads, hookers, and winos panhandle for Jack, piss in the corners, and do the dirty deed in the shadows. The statue of Hercules be damned. There's nothing the least bit heroic about the locale, other than the amount of booze consumed per capita. It's a well-marked rendezvous for every sordid business. Jason is probably sleeping it off in the bushes getting fleeced. The Argonauts have scrammed. Barcelona turns out to be one of the epicenters of the quake that shakes the world loose from its hinges. Me, I'm sitting alone at this dive when the odd couple at the two-top next to me invites me to pull up a chair and join them for a snort. A feisty American dame and her swell Scots husband spectate with barely suppressed mirth as a carload of circus clowns tumbles into Barcelona, the fine establishment in which we converge. Salud, dinero, y amor! The cheeky boy wonder, John Van Neumann, self-appointed ringmaster of the science and maths crowd at Barcelona, struts out his newly acquired Spanish, revved up for his one and only vacation in Annus 1925. Then he hits the books to nail a bachelor's in chemistry at ETH Zurich and a PhD in mathematics at Pasmani Peter, 2 sheepskins in 1 year. The table is crammed with heavy hitters. Von Neumann, future father of cellular automata and quantum statistical mechanics, waxes positively buoyant. Herr Professor Einstein and Norbert Wiener, the cybernetics fellow, also attend the festivities. They pop down for a holiday in Barcelona after a chance encounter on a train in Germany. Who says God doesn't play dice? Wave upon wave, fascinating rhythm, a diffraction pattern radiating from an unseen shore and back, laps at the concrete under the watchful eye of Christopher Columbus, perched atop 131 feet of Corinthian majesty. A stone's throw from Hercules poised in the shallow waters of his fountain on La Rambla. Disruptors both. Columbus, by some accounts a crypto-Jew, returns to Barcelona from the New World to be welcomed into the open arms of Isabella, Queen of the Inquisition, the beginning of the European race to that distant shore for booty and slaves prized from the savages who dwell thereon. Hercules' story? He slays his wife and children in a fit of madness, sentenced to the 12 labors, only to expire in flames on his own funeral pyre, to dissolve the bounds segregating men from their gods. Circus Maximus. The gal with the Scotsman launches in without so much as a breath for introductions. Jamie is such a hero. Rescues me from exile in his own country. Don't mind my butchery of his dashing Scots accent. Fascist U.S. courts deport me. Actually had the cojones to revoke my U.S. citizenship. Jamie's marriage proposal makes me a Brit, just in the nick of time, so as the American fascists can't strong-arm the U.K. into giving me the boot. Land of the freeloading rich bullies who think they can skim their profits off the backs of everyone else, entitled to snarf up every last red cent. She knits her brow for emphasis. Home of the brave in the face of unarmed opposition is what I say, setting those Pinkertons to slaughter honest laborers. I wince at that one, having done my time with those boys. Emma, that was her nom de guerre. She continues, I'm so inspired by our man Roger Baldwin. He came out swinging this year when he brought his ACLU whiz kids into the fray against those Bible thumpers in the Scopes monkey trial. The ignoramai of Tennessee tried to slam the lid on established scientific truth in favor of the Pandora's box of their religious claptrap. Old Roger's legal eagles gave them what for. America is one crazy country, I tell you. Lunatics on the loose. Can you imagine? 40,000 white-hooded racists marching in the streets of the nation's capital just this year. They say the KKK is the largest fraternal organization in the whole damn country. Who would have thought so many simpletons were lurking in the shadows, waiting to parade their ignorance in the light of day? So Uncle Sam and I part company, and I marry an anarchist Scotsman, all for the cause. The mathematical intuitive leaves his village in a far-off exotic land to travel to one of the capitals of civilization. He leaves behind both wife and mother. He must translate the gift his God has given him to enlighten the savage residents of the city. The cloak of his foreign mentors clings to his flesh, draws blood, and ultimately takes from him life itself. But his formulae, his holy formulae, shine from the night sky overhead for generations. In accord with an unspoken but nevertheless assumed theorem of inclusivity, the illustrious penman of general relativity rings up his young visiting protege from the subcontinent, Satyendra Nath Bose, SN to the theoretical physics crowd, and instructs him to hop the first train to Barcelona to join the merrymaking. Von Neumann concurs, the more the merrier. The Hungarian neophyte fancies himself a swell, though he looks more like a stiff dressed to the nines for his own funeral. He jollies up the crowd with a steady stream of off-color jokes, frequently lapsing into Yiddish for the punchlines. The band concludes with a snappy medley of I Want to Be Happy, King Porter Stomp, and Sweet Georgia Brown. The only one who fidgets at von Neumann's tawdry gags is the diminutive American lass, Grace Hopper, still sore about her first-round rejection by those pinheads at Vassar, a long shot for early decision at Sweet 16. But what the hell, life is short. By any calculation, the youngest at the table, all of 19 years, she's nobody's patsy. Not at all the wallflower with the math and physics boys. She will sail into a brilliant career in analytical machines. Retires as a rear admiral in the U.S. Navy. The first compiler language is her love child. The buzz is that she coins a new term for fixing a computer glitch when she, get a load of this, removes a moth from the machine. The first quote-unquote debugging. I suspect she feels a bit more at home due to the presence of the gray eminence Madame Curie, there on unofficial business of the League of Nations International Committee on Intellectual Cooperation. Madame Curie and Herr Einstein share that honor, though he sorely resents the inclusion of Henri Bergson in their august company. The lady is one hell of a genius, 2 Nobels, plus risking her own neck to bring her invention of field radiology out to the French troops during the war. The French public vilifies her as a Jew of all things. Why, she's merely a lapsed Catholic turned atheist. The frog muckety-mucks are too pig-headed to shower her with the laurel she deserves, but the rest of the world tips its hat to her. You'd think she's radioactive, for Christ's sake. Interlude. Partitions. 1925, the world in moving pictures. A year of blockbusters. Sergei Eisenstein coins a new cinematic trope, the montage technique, in Battleship Potemkin. It premieres at the Bolshoi Theater, commemorating a failed revolution 20 years earlier. The birth of nonlinear editing. Lon Chaney delivers one of his ghoulish best in The Phantom of the Opera. MGM grosses 9 million smackers for Ben-Hur, A Tale of the Christ, complete with a couple snazzy two-tone Technicolor sequences. Chaplin's The Gold Rush sets the record as the highest-grossing silent comedy film of all time, voted tops of the year. Reviewers in the Big Apple love the motion picture reworking of L. Frank Baum's popular classic, The Wizard of Oz, a, quote, rough and tumble farce, and a corking picture. The production company goes bust that year. Hepcats get their kicks watching Chaplin and his confreres of comedy, Harold Lloyd, Buster Keaton, Laurel and Hardy, Our Gang, and Harry Langdon, and of course the hipster-in-chief, Felix the Cat. A field day for the manic art of slapstick. Moviegoers thrilled to the first full-length dinosaur sci-fi, The Lost World. Also, the first in-flight feature, shown in a converted World War I bomber flown by Imperial Airways for the 30-minute trip from London to Paris. 1925, the year the Warner Brothers put their cabbage behind the technology for talkies, portending utter transformation of the people's cinematic circus. End of interlude. Grace Hopper's coltishness is nothing compared to the strange ranger at the other end of the table, Kurt Gödel. Herr Warum to his colleagues, Mr. Y. He hasn't got a clue. A beneficiary of the Vienna Circle's high tolerance for eccentricity. The owlish oddball is midway in age between von Neumann and Hopper. His sickliness elicits a kind of horror-struck paternalism in all but the most hard-bitten of the science crew. A philosopher by trade, he is notorious for non-sequitur pronouncements for the benefit of precisely no one. Just now, at a lull in the conversation, he pipes up, "Mathematical logic is a science prior to all others, which contains the ideas and principles underlying all sciences." Silence. A brace of palomitas startle from under the eaves of a nearby portico and fly chortling into the canopy of palms that lines the berm in the middle of La Rambla's exotic sanctuary. 10 million anchovies flash and swarm in the moonlight beside the colossal concrete floating quay in the harbor, its 25-meter caisson slumbering beneath the surface. The independent port of Barcelona, nodal point to flotillas of commercial vessels, pleasure yachts, and military craft alike. Even the occasional errant humpback heeds the harbor's siren call, far from its migrant gypsy confreres in the wider ocean. The raucous melody of Riverboat Shuffle chuffs playfully out the open windows of Barcelona and cakewalks its way down La Rambla to the sea. Emma, the American gal, takes another luxurious drag on her gauloise, a nod to her groom, and a pat of the hand. Jamie knows I still carry a torch for Sasha, but he's copacetic. A lovely June wedding, a month in the country with Jamie's pal Sir James George, then off to Barcelona on assignment from the old anthropologist. She laughs like a man. I swear I can hear Jamie's family jewels retracting into his abdominal cavity. Emma Goldman is one tough dame, a real hard-hearted Hannah, quote, pouring water on a drowning man, unquote, as the song says. Rumor has it she was in the assassination biz back in the States. Her lover, Alexander Berkman, a.k.a. Sasha, got 22 years in the slammer for plugging Henry Clay Frick full of holes. Didn't kill him, though. Damned incompetent anarchist. She stubs out her fag and jaws on. At 56, a honeymoon with your husband of convenience is not quite the passionate affair of the heart as a fling with an assassin in your 20s. But old Sir James George Fraser gave us a lark of an assignment. Research the founding mythology of Barcelona for his big book, an addendum to his already massive golden bough. Imagine 12 volumes of fairy tales. The would-be assassin's moll clucks and shakes her head in disbelief that anyone would devote so much energy to such a bootless enterprise. We just had to come here, of course. Barcelona simply breathes anarchism. Jamie smiles gamely and lights another gauloise for the lady. An awkward pause. It feels like my turn to pipe up. I'm here on account of my health. Contracted TB driving an ambulance during the war. Married my nurse. Josie and I have one swell kid, a 4-year-old little girl, and we're thinking of trying for number 2. My last chance for a big scoop. You see, I'm a writer, Dashiell Hammett. Maybe you've heard of me. I'm interested in the political fracas that's heating up over here. I figure I'll take in the sea air and do some research of my own. So what do you got on the Barcelona beat? The ancient cobblestones of Barri Gothique engage the pedestrian in a conversation that meanders through centuries, a space-filling delta that ramifies from behind La Rambla to the sea, city of disputation, religious, philosophical, and scientific debate. Barcelona, the daughter of her smaller mother, Girona. Barcelona, center of commerce, seat of empire. Rabbi Shlomo Ibn Aderet holds sway, though his teacher's legacies remain with the mother city. Ibn Aderet, a.k.a. the Rashba, the rabbi of Spain, at least for the latter half of the 13th century. His mentors in Girona, Yonah and the great Nachmanides, pitched their tents in opposing camps. A banker, the Rashba clings to the middle way, eschews praise of philosophy and science a la Maimonides, and as well as demurs the mystic path of his teacher Nachmanides. He dies in 1310, the year after the music has changed irrevocably. The Copenhagen quantum gang, Heisenberg and Bohr, leaped down to Barcelona to toast the galleys of Heisenberg's paper, Quantum Theoretical Reinterpretation. The newly celebrated author, young Werner, chews the fat with Wolfgang Pauli, while recovering from one of his frequent bouts of hay fever. So when he and Bohr decide to make tracks for Barcelona, Heisenberg's enthusiasm bumbles over and zaps Pauli. Wolfie busts out of his Hamburg orbital and joins them all in their excited state. The Danish duo also wires Paul Dirac, Pascual Jordan, and Max Born, the whole sick quantum crew, to make the scene for an impromptu symposium and jazz fest in Barcelona. These are the boys who blow up old Rutherford's bowling ball model of the atom. Kaboom! Dirac needs a little arm twisting to pry him out of his Cambridge cell. Too bad his brother died in March, but anyone who knows the straight dope on Paul is pretty clear familial attachment is strictly anthropological, not so much emotional, with Frere Dirac. Jordan is a different kind of trouble. Spanish nobility, originally Jorda. His great-great-great served with Wellington in the Brits' beef with Napoleon. The family's reward? Transposition en masse to Hanover, under the aegis of the British royals. The firstborn male of every generation is henceforth dubbed with the first name Pascual. The name is the only thing Spanish that the young German quantum mechanic does not eschew. However, when he hears the great Schrödinger has condescended to Barcelona from his eyrie in Zurich, Jordan overcomes his inertia and vaults down the map. Fat Swaller's Squeeze Me waggles its way from the bandstand, offering its lazy seduction to the crowd. Some are not so easily seduced. Herr Professor Jordan takes a schlug from his beer stein and sneers at von Neumann's clumsy Spanish. I can't imagine why you would bother to bugger an inferior language when we all know your Deutsch is passable even for a Hungarian Jew. Von Neumann, nobody's goat, shakes his head and mutters aloud enough for the others to hear. He sounds just like one of Horthy's Vitesse Wren thugs, those fascist hooligans. A sudden hush shrouds the 12 disciples of the god of fearful symmetry. Pauli, deathly averse to conflict, practically jumps from the table. My dear Paco, begins Wolfie's high-pressure patter as he rubs his hands together furiously, I see that you and John are of opposite spins on the matter of the Spanish. He nods furiously. According to the calculations of my new theory, that should nonetheless allow you to comfortably remain within the same orbital. He ends with a ghastly staccato laugh. Ha-ha! Pow! Paco Jordan's beer glass explodes. Spooked, Paco quickly reconfigures his face, muttering, Damned Spanish beer! Alhambra mein Arsch! Heisenberg winks at Born and observes sotto voce. The Pauli effect strikes again. He and Max have many a time Witness the preternatural tendency of glass laboratory equipment to explode spontaneously whenever Pauli makes the scene. Max shoots over to Pauli. "Wolfie, please control yourself. We can't afford to buy a new round of drinks every time your psychic energy goes kablooey." The whole table roars. Pauli glances down as his ears turn the very deepest shade of beet red.